Hi, welcome back, Bio4. We're moving on to part 3 of muscle. I'm going to start out by thinking about the 5 golden rules of skeletal muscle activity. Skeletal, okay? We're thinking of muscle that moves your skeleton. Okay. First, it won't go. We are stuck. Okay, most muscles cross at least one joint. Right? Because we wanted to cross the joint so that when you contract it, it's gonna flex or extend at that particular joint. So if you're flexing at the elbow, it's because that muscle crossed the elbow and it's attached on either side, so that contracting it is gonna move the forearm. I'm saying most and not all. Can you think of some that are not? In the face, facial muscles, right? Don't really cross a joint. Okay, 2. Typically, the bulk of the muscle lies proximally to the joint. So rest your forearm again on the table and you have your biceps. Your biceps, it's going to lift that hand towards your ear. That biceps, the bulk of that muscle is proximal to the joint, which means it's not, the bulk of the muscle is not on your forearm, it's in your upper arm. Okay? All muscles have at least 2 attachments, an origin and insertion. That makes sense. 4. Muscles can only pull. Now that sounds really silly to say that, right? They can only pull, they can't push. But that's what makes you think about, if they can only pull, then I'm going to bring my palm up towards my ear, and it can only do that. And now to bring it back down again, I need a separate opposing muscle to do that. It's not just the release of that one that's going to make my hands smash back down on the table. It's an opposing muscle that's going to contract. So it's this symphony of muscles that are going to have to coordinate with each other for you to be able to have smooth movements and not appear spastic. 5. During contraction, the muscle insertion moves towards the origin. The insertion, more distal one, moves towards the origin. Okay, I think I illustrated that one already. All right. Skeletal muscles don't act alone. It's not one muscle that does one activity and then another one does another. They help each other out in different roles. Sometimes they're the main operator, other times they're the helper, and other times they're one that sort of dampens that movement. It's all helping each other out for you to have these amazing ability, this amazing ability to be able to move your skeleton in the most graceful of ways. Okay, so they cooperate with each other. You have coordinated movement because of that, but for a particular action, there's a boss, right? There's one muscle that's kind of the boss for that particular action. And that same boss muscle might not be a boss for a separate action, and he's a helper in that case. Okay, so it's going to depend on the action. Okay, so I'm going to talk about those categories then. The first category is the prime mover, the prime mover or the agonist. The second is the synergist, helper. He's the helper. The third one's the antagonist. It's the one that does the exact opposite movement. If one is to flex the arm, the other one is going to extend it. And the other, last one, 4, is a fixator. It's kind of an anchor so that, again, you don't have spastic movements, but it's going to anchor it so that you have fluid movements and you can dance. So a little bit more about each one of those. Prime mover. It provides most of the force. Okay? Most of the force. Now, let me break this to you. The flexion at the elbow that I've been telling you about the whole time, bringing your palm up towards your ear, it's actually not the biceps brachii that is the prime mover of that. It's a different one. It's a different one that's called brachialis. So look at 2, synergist, the helper of that prime mover in that flexion at the elbow is actually the biceps brachii. So you think that lifting up a weight, you're just working your biceps when you're doing that. Actually, you're working your brachialis mostly, and also the biceps because it's a synergist, but it's not the main, it's not the prime mover. So if it's not the prime mover, what does it do? Well, it stabilizes, so it doesn't, when you flex towards your ear, you don't have jagged movements. It restricts so that you're not flopping to the left and flopping to the right and flopping to the left before you make your hand up to your ear. It's all in one smooth movement, and it can modify the direction a little bit. So if you need to modify that direction, it's the fine-tuning. It's the fine-tuning that the biceps brachii is doing. Okay, so let's look at some actions, right? And I only need you to know one of these, and it's for the sit-ups, because I'm going to show you some other exercises, but sit-ups, right? So this one I want you to know. You're doing sit-ups. The prime mover here, thinking, is your abs, right? Your abdominals, but that's not the only ones. The prime movers, it's plural here, is the abdominal and the hip flexors, because you have to bring your whole torso back up, and you have flexors at the hip. So in my drawings here, you can see, let me get black. So in black, so here it's your abs, right, that are doing a lot of work. But look here, if I actually show you these muscles that are crossing this joint at the hip and attaching to the back and attaching to the os coxae here, this is going to have to flex. You're flexing right there, right? At the hip. And if you're flexing at the hip, these are going to be putting in a lot of work also. So those are the two prime movers. Who are the synergists? Well, your obliques. You get pen color red. So here, obliques and your rectus femoris. They are helping that movement to go well, to be smooth. So those I want you to know. What is a prime mover and what is a synergist in a sit-up. For these others, we're just going to look at for fun. If you're doing a squat, right, what are the prime movers and the synergists? So prime movers, think about it a little bit. To maintain that difficult position. Prime mover. Oh, I'm not telling you. And which are the synergists? Okay, I'm going to tell you at the beginning of the next recording. Think about it for a little bit. Think of side bends also. And I'll tell you at the beginning of the next recording. So you want to be thinking about prime mover and synergist. Then an antagonist opposes the prime mover, so extending, you've brought your forearm off the table towards your ear. Now you're going to extend your arm and you're going to put your palm, your back of your hand back on the table again. So extending the arm uses the triceps brachii. So that's the antagonist to the biceps brachii. And the brachialis slows that movement down. It slows it down so that you don't, when you're coming back down onto the table, slap the table with your knuckles and get bloody knuckles, right? Because the brachialis is sort of holding that down so that it doesn't slap down. A fixator prevents a bone from moving. It also stabilizes the movement of a second muscle. So I'm going to show you a couple here, and then we'll stop. So the trapezius, we're going to come show you here. Trapezius. And now on this side of this cadaver, or we've dissected further down. So then we can see rhomboideus here, right? And those two are fixators to the biceps, because look, they're attaching here onto the scapula, right? And the scapula is an anchor to the arm. So those two muscles are fixators. They're just holding tight there. They're holding onto this scapula, right? That it's letting it not float around up or down. It's holding it tight so that the muscle movement in the arm here can be more smooth. Okay, let's stop there. Think about those primary movers, and I'll give you the answer at the beginning of the next lecture. Take care. Bye.